Okay. And with that, just so you know, by all means, put your comments or your questions, suggestions in the chat box, and we do pause periodically so that we can read them and have a deep discussion about the different components of our vision statement. So with that, our current vision statement is the vision of Clayton County Public Schools is to be a district of high performance, preparing all students to live and compete successfully in a global society. We developed and the Board of Education voted on that particular vision statement back in 2017. And as we are going through the strategic improvement process, part of what we do every year is to continue to review the vision and the mission, and of course the strategic improvement plan. And so as we were reviewing the vision statement this year, we felt the need to do some modifications and do some changes to the vision statement. So Dr. Beasley formed a focus group that were district leadership, school leadership, community members, elected officials, and we've been working for about a year now, going through some rigorous training, looking at research to determine what is the best direction for our school system as we try to redesign what we do. Okay, so with that, I want to read the proposed vision statement at this time, and then we'll start going bullet by bullet to get your comments and suggestions. The vision of Clayton County Public Schools is to produce graduates who have the skill to pursue and successfully accomplish college, post-secondary training, and or a career opportunity as a result of their ability to read proficiently and critically in order to use knowledge to solve problems, effectively communicate when writing and speaking, demonstrate noble character as an engaged, well-rounded citizen, exude self-awareness, self-regulation, and self-confidence, leverage technology efficiently and creatively, lead, collaborate, and contribute to a team and community, manifest passions into realities, and exhibit cultural responsiveness and international competitiveness in order to adapt and keep pace with an ever-evolving world. And I know you're sitting there saying, my goodness, that is a lot on that vision statement. Why is it so long? Well, we decided to do a little research, like I said earlier, and our research was not just based on what we've seen nationally, but it was also based on the highest performing school systems, such as Singapore, such as Finland, Hong Kong, and we noticed that even in those countries and a few of the high-performing school systems in the US, they had longer, more explicit, more detailed vision statements to share with the community exactly what the school system expected, not only of the students, but of the teachers, of the staff, of administrators. So we decided to model our vision statement using the same format. And so what we're going to do, we're going to look at each individual bullet and have some conversations around each one so that I can take your feedback back to the committee so that we can really flesh this out and give a really good proposed vision statement to our Board of Education. So let's go to the first one. And please use the chat box at any time if you want to make any comments. So our first bullet says, read proficiently and critically in order to use knowledge to solve problems. We know that reading is fundamental. We know that as students are not reading on grade level, at or above grade level, I always got to say above because we want our students to read above grade level. We know that it's difficult to solve problems. It's difficult to really think about certain things. So it's really important for us to make sure that our students are reading. I'm a former math teacher, and I noticed that when my mathematics students could not read, or they were not able to read at least the textbook, then they had challenges in mathematics. So that is why we want to make sure reading is at the forefront of everything that we do to ensure our students are reading proficiently. So I'm going to pause right now to see if Dr. Beasley has any comments on this bullet. And if you have any comments that you want to make, you can make them in the chat box, or if you have any questions, and then we'll answer them after Dr. Beasley gives his comment.
Thank you, Dr. Wiley. And this one, this reading proficiently and critically is so, so important to the work that we're doing currently in our school system. And you should know we have Clayton reads occurring, and there are so many approaches that we're, or if you will, initiatives that we have to really get our students reading proficiently and critically at the grade level and above their grade level. So we'd like you to know that we're committed to ensuring that our students can read. We understand that there are gaps currently. We've got many students who are not reading proficiently, or at least on grade level. And we know that all of us can read more critically, as we can clearly see in the time that we're living in. If we can't read critically, then we can't understand information in order to make good decisions, in order to solve problems as we should. So we recognize how important it is to read proficiently. And so at every level in our district, in every classroom, you will see a strong push on reading proficiently and critically, being able to think critically in order to solve problems. Thank you, Dr. Wiley.
You're welcome. And I do not see any questions on this particular bullet. So I'm going to assume everybody agrees with us on this one. So I'm going to move on to the next one. And the next one states, effectively communicate when writing and speaking. If you have done anything with 21st century skills, reading, writing, and speaking are key components to a 21st century child. So we wanted to make sure that our students can communicate, not just in writing, but with speaking. Speaking in the public speaking, your thoughts, creatively speaking, whatever the case may be, we wanted to make sure that our students were able to communicate. So if you have any questions about this particular bullet, while I read the chat box, because I see some question marks, so I need to go back and see. Dr. Beasley, any questions that you may have?
Well, I saw a question. I wanted to go. I think it was Destin, I believe it is. She asked about can we give some light on how the vision is used within the schools? So, Dr. Wiley, I can always respond if you want to. I'll give you a chance to respond, and then if you'd like to toss it to me, I can add anything to it.
Okay, no problem. The vision is, like I said, it's a broader statement. It's where we want to be in 5 years. So when you look at this vision, you're going to see, okay, they want our child to effectively communicate when writing and speaking. So now what our job is to do, and what we do in the background that you may not see on a day-to-day basis, we're starting to look at that mission statement. That mission statement tells us exactly what we want our students to do on a day-to-day basis. After we create that mission statement, we look at the strategic improvement plan, which that's what we're doing now. We're always looking at these documents. The strategic improvement plan has action steps. For example, I just read part of the improvement plan this afternoon, and the reading, writing, and speaking, in that action step, it talks about exactly what we're going to do from intervention skills. It talks about what we're going to do as far as hiring qualified teachers to ensure that our students can read and that our students can communicate when writing and speaking. So those are just some examples of how we make sure that the vision is seen within the schools. Dr. Beasley, if you had any other comments.
No, I was going to say that the vision is, as you've already shared, is basically the beginning of the process. Then what we do in our strategic plan, we outline specific actions and measurements that we would expect to achieve in order to meet or to realize the vision. So every school has a school improvement plan. It's directly tied to the district's strategic plan, and our strategies, if you will, they're directly tied to the vision that we have for our students. So every school, everyone is moving in the same direction. You may see different types of strategies or approaches used within each classroom, but they're working toward the overall same goals that you will see, which allows us all to reach the vision that we have for our school system. I see a question by Tarina that asks, how are teachers going to be held accountable for students reading proficiently? So all of us, the superintendent, myself, all of us are being held accountable for our students reading proficiently. So we look at data from the classroom level all the way up to the district level. We set goals, and principals work with teachers to support them, to monitor, to provide resources, and to hold them accountable. But we need parents as well, because students don't do all of their reading in school. You can't do all of your reading in school. We need parents ensuring that when our kids are at home, that they are reading, spending more time reading the notes, reading the textbooks, reading newspapers, reading content online, reading appropriate books, etc., that will help them continue to improve or increase their reading proficiency. So it's not just the teachers, and yes, they have a role. They're systematically teaching reading at the elementary level. And then, of course, we teach students how to use their skill of reading to actually learn content in all of the content areas. But beyond the school, as families, we've got to ensure that our kids are reading more every day. Every day they're reading books. We ought to see more kids going to libraries, whether it be the school library or the public library. We ought to see more kids reading books across the board, reading magazines, things of interest. So it's all of us. So how do we hold ourselves accountable? We look at the data, but as a community, we've got to see, and we should see, more of our kids reading on or above grade level if we're doing this, if we're approaching this work the way we should. And I must say, it starts early. It doesn't start once they get to kindergarten. It starts when you decide to have children. It starts when they're in your womb reading to them. It starts when they're born, speaking to them and using appropriate language to them, and reading to them on a daily basis. That's where it starts. And if it starts there, by the time they reach the schoolhouse, pre-K and kindergarten, they have already developed many of the skills that we need them to have in order to read on or above grade level. So it's not just the schoolhouse, it's all of us working to do our part to ensure that our students are reading proficiently and critically.
Thank you, Dr. Beasley. And Ms. Booth, yes, you may unmute because we want to make sure that we clearly understand your question. So if you need to clarify at this time, yes, ma'am, you may.
Thank you. I'm a teacher, by the way. And my question was based on our current vision. In the classroom, I made sure that even my students understood the vision. And they broke down what high performance was and what it looked like. We gave it a percentage, how many kids needed to hit that percentage. We looked over test scores and we reevaluated whether we were operating at a high performance. So my question was more like, how are these schools who have these longer descriptions utilizing, what strategies are they using in the classroom to make sure even their kids understand the vision? Because ultimately, yes, everybody has to be cooperative, and we have to have one vision. So I want to know if they had any strategies that they were using, because we can create a longer vision, but what strategies are they using now that it's longer to effectively communicate that to our kids? Does that make sense?
Good question.
Yes.
It does.
And what we discussed this in the first community meeting before we closed the schools. We had a community meeting, and we talked about, you know, how we always go over the student handbook with the students. One period may have the first 5 pages. The next period may have, you know, whatever, so forth and so on. So we were talking about, we need to pretty much do the same thing with the vision. We need to make sure the students, because it is a lot longer, we need to make sure the students and the teachers really understand what is expected of our community and of our school system. So we're developing a plan so that the teachers are going over the vision statement, and the teachers and the staff and the administrators are embodying what the vision statement means. And that takes a step from us to make sure that we're communicating with all staff members what this vision statement means. We're going over with the leadership team this summer with the research that this vision statement is grounded in. We're going over that this summer with all the leaders. So that is our first step, to make sure that the schools, all of our schools, are aware of the vision statement and how we're going to communicate that with our students and with our teachers.
Ms.
Thank
Booth,
you.
Ms.
You're
Booth,
welcome.
is that Ms. Booth that was talking?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Booth, I think one thing we can do, and Dr. Wiley, we should list this as something to take back to the cross-functional team.
Mm-hmm.
I think not only do we put it in our student code of handbook to discuss it, but the first few days of instruction in all of our classrooms, every teacher should spend a few minutes reviewing the vision and asking students, what does that mean? What are the implications for that vision in this classroom? And we should do have those vision conversations, if you will, periodically throughout the school year. You know, when we first come back to school, at some point, maybe the middle of the semester, and as we bringing things to a close, did we meet the vision? Did you fulfill the vision for this classroom or for this semester? You know, how are you making progress? I think we should include those types of conversations periodically within our classrooms across the board, just relative to our vision statement. That's just my idea.
Mm-hmm. I like that idea, and I wrote it down
And Ms.
because
Johnson, I believe Ms. Johnson, our board member, has a
yes,
comment that she'd like to share.
she
I
does.
do.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I just wanted to say this to the parents. My husband and I had the opportunity to be host family to a young man from Norway through the Rotary student program. And through that, we also had the opportunity to visit in his home in Norway. They had two sons, and both of their sons were required to read the Sunday newspaper from cover to cover. And then if they had questions, they asked their parents, or if their parents couldn't ask, then they would outline it and send it back to school with them so that perhaps their teachers could answer that question. But, even the News Daily or just a People magazine, just something to have a child focus on to read at home, I think is a great idea.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson, and I agree with you. Our students need to be reading constantly, and it doesn't really matter what they read as long as they read. And as a parent, I get frustrated sometimes with what my son wants to read, but sometimes I have to give in because at least he wants to read. So it really doesn't matter. Sometimes it doesn't matter.
I'm sorry, Dr. Wiley. I see Teresa was asking about names being who's responsible
I was about to get to that. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I did make a comment there for you.
Oh, okay. Let me make sure I'm consistent. And that's exactly what I was going to say, Teresa. The names of people who are responsible will be in the action plan. So look out for that. We have one that we've been working on that we're going to publish soon. But once we revise all of these documents, you'll see a new one, and it may not have a name, but it will have a title in that area, because we don't want to put names just in case, some people may leave and be promoted and whatnot. So we're going to put the title of the person that should be engaged in that particular area. And then Ms. Holston asked a question about our faith-based organization. The great thing about our focus group that we did have representation from the faith group, the faith-based organizations. So we are bridging the gaps between all of our various community organizations so that we're working together to ensure our youth receive what they need. And then Dr. Beasley has his community and faith-based Superintendent's Advisory Committee that meets periodically throughout the school year. And he updates them on the vision, strategic planning, and various aspects of our school system. So they are abreast of the needs of the school system. Okay, so now let's move to the next one. Let's see. And then I'll go back to the chat box to see if I missed anything. The next bullet item says, demonstrate noble character as an engaged, well-rounded citizen. What we, during our face-to-face community meeting, some of the community members talked about the word noble and whether or not our students would understand the word noble. And so we pushed back a little bit and said that we want to make sure that we are giving our students higher level vocabulary. We want to make sure that our students are engaged in areas that normally they would not be. So we decided to keep the word noble in this particular statement, because it is up to us as educators. If we're going through the vision statement using Dr. Beasley's idea, it is going to be the responsibility of the teacher or the administrator, whoever, define the word noble, to give examples of the word noble. But it will also be the responsibility of all of us for us to demonstrate the noble character and to demonstrate what we mean to be a well-rounded citizen. Because noble, you know, is the highest of ideals, it's the highest principles. So we want to make sure that our students are demonstrating that in day to day, every single day. So we have to do the same thing. And so I'm going to pause and let Dr. Beasley comment if he wants to while I read some of the chat box questions.
I'll just share what I shared with the 430 group, Dr. Wiley, that we teach the noble character, and we show students how to be well-rounded citizens as embedded within our curriculum when we do group work or collaborative lessons, when students are participating in sports and extracurricular activities, when they have to learn how to interact with each other. Those are the opportunities that we're modeling for our students what noble character is. When the teacher tells them to get their work in on time and to not cheat on the test and to make sure that they don't write a paper and take credit for something else, someone else's ideas, all of that is a part of character. And we have to realize that our children are learning how to be people of noble character. They're going to make mistakes, but our responsibilities as adults is to model for them how do you respond when you do make a mistake or when others make a mistake. So it's really not just in the classroom, but out of the classroom, not just at school, but at home. We're all demonstrating and teaching our students how to reflect noble character. So, and when we teach them how to vote, or we teach them how to speak up, even now with the protests, we're teaching them how to be a citizen and how to be a responsible citizen, not just that you have rights, but that you have responsibilities to not only yourself, but to your community, to one another. And so it's not a thing you just say every day, well, we're going to teach you noble character, even though we do have moments where we talk about character, but it's more in what we practice and what we do on a daily basis. And I believe Dr. Wiley Monet, I believe that's her name, had a question as well.
I'm not.
Oh, hi. I wasn't sure if you guys wanted me to come off mute because I typed it in the chat. My question was, I just know that with some of my students, they don't necessarily even know the school's vision. And I really like the idea you gave earlier. So I wanted to know, with the county vision, would it be revised to incorporate the visions of the individual schools, or would schools have to modify their vision to kind of make a short version of the county vision, just so everyone in the county is aligned and is kind of on the same page and saying the same thing, but maybe in their own individual way?
Well,
oh, go
Dr.
ahead, Doctor.
Wiley, no, Dr. Wiley, please. I was responding in the chat box to a question.
Okay, my connection is going.
Okay, let me.
Um,
You
go
faded
ahead.
out there.
Okay, yeah, my connection was going in and out. But Monet, what a few years ago, I will tell you, when we created the vision statement, all of the schools were to adopt that vision statement. And so it is expected now, because when you have a district this size, to ensure that schools aren't going off in the left field or the right field, we have to look at our vision. And there are going to be some times where the schools may want to create their own vision, but that vision must be aligned to the district's vision. It is very important, because if we're not all on the same page, or we're not all, if you will, for the lack of a better example, if we're not all on the same bus, then how can we meet that final destination? So we're going to, and that's part of what federal programs does as well. When schools turn in their federal programs plans, Miss Katrina Thompson, she looks into those plans to ensure that the vision and the mission, excuse me, are really aligned to what the district is saying, because we have to have a district federal programs plan. So we do that at the district level to ensure we are all moving in the same direction and trying to reach that same finish line. Dr. Beasley, did you want?
No, I think you shared. I think that this new vision statement will give the schools a bit more latitude to kind of narrow in on what their vision for their schools, which I think our process where every school creates their own improvement plan, where it has to be aligned to the district's plan, that ensures, as you said, an alignment of the visions, but each school still has some latitude as to the development of their particular vision statement. And this new vision statement will support that, because you may have some schools that need to focus on certain aspects of the district's vision statement more than others, because every school community is different. So I do believe that latitude and that flexibility, but that alignment is purposeful, and it will be there because of the way we've structured how everyone has to build their school's plan based upon the district's plan, etc.
Thank you, Dr. Beasley. And we did have one question. Can you explain more on how they will demonstrate well-roundedness when they come back? We all know a well-rounded student, when what we do at the, when we say well-rounded, we look at the whole child. So we make sure our students have opportunities, and I saw extracurricular activities. Our students have opportunities to join those extracurricular activities. Our students have opportunities for, at least for high school, to go into the industry and do some work-based learning. And our students, it's just up to us to give our students those opportunities, community service opportunities, develop well-rounded citizens. So we want to give them the opportunity. How that would look, like one of the comments that Dr. Beasley made in the chat box, how that would look this coming fall, we're still trying to determine that at this time. And how is the district going to ensure that this is being done? There are checks and balances at the school level, where we have area superintendents, we have implementation specialists, we have deputy superintendents, and we all have a key role to play in how we monitor certain things in the district. What I do as far as the strategic planning process, I gather data. I email principals, and I email different department heads, and I say, I need to see some documentation or demonstrate noble character as an engaged, well-rounded citizen. And then we collect that data, and we actually do review data quarterly to ensure that we are actually doing what we say we're going to do. So that's how we monitor. We look at the data quarterly. to ensure that we're doing it. And when we do, we have principals and we have some teachers in the meetings as well, so that everyone has a voice in those meetings. So let's see. Okay, I will read the rest of the comments, but I'm going to move to the next one. And it says, exude self-awareness, self-regulation, and self-confidence. Exude was another word that was brought to our attention, but again, we decided to keep that in there because we want our students, again, to have that high-level vocabulary. And exude, it simply says that our students are going to display strongly, quality, strongly, and openly their emotions, their self-awareness. We want them to be self-aware. We want them to be able to self-regulate and be self-confident. And I don't want to steal Dr. Beasley's thunder because he gave an example of collaborative or cooperative groups in classrooms. So I'm going to ask him to go ahead and state that again in this meeting while I read the chat box.
Well, thank you, Dr. Wiley. I shared earlier that when it comes to students exuding self-awareness and self-regulation and self-confidence, we provide them an opportunity to develop those skills and those capacities and abilities within the classroom and well beyond the classroom. Even when students participate in extracurricular activities, there has to be a degree of self-awareness, and they've got to learn that from a younger age as they matriculate through the school system. They've got to know how to regulate themselves, and all of us know how important the confidence is. And so, again, it's not that a teacher stops every day and says, we've got to develop self-awareness, or you've got to regulate, or you've got to have confidence, but it's in how we plan for instruction, the activities that we plan for, the opportunities that we provide students. And we measure these skill sets, as a matter of fact, in various ways, whether it be through surveys or through social emotional learning instruments. We can measure how our students are doing in these areas. And we do have tools in our district that we can use to measure how our students are doing overall in these areas. Dr. Wiley, I also see a question from Dr. Pulliam. Basically, how do we know exactly how well our students have done, or are we preparing them for the world until, how do we know basically how they're doing after they leave us? I believe that's what Dr. Pulliam is asking. Do we know where they are? Do we know what they're doing, etc.? I do think that we do need to figure out a way to tap into our students when they're gone from the school system, so we'll know exactly what they are doing. It's sort of like having an alumni office where we can keep up with students as to whether or not they finish college, they're working, they're doing successfully, etc. I think more conversation probably needs to be had in that area, Dr. Pulliam. I'm not aware right now of no more than surveys, and they're not necessarily very targeted, because sometimes once students leave us, we don't have email addresses, etc. But I think there's an opportunity, because we do have parent email addresses, that we can at least survey the community to get an idea as to what our graduates are doing. And I think, and let me know otherwise if your question was geared in another direction, but I think just using the tools that we have, the data that we have to access the families, and maybe posing and asking some intentional questions about how our students are doing once they leave us may be helpful for us to do.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Beasley. And as far as district-wide as a whole, I just realized on the state website where we can look into whether or not our students are attending certain universities, the two-year colleges, or they have gone straight to the workforce. So that's a start. And I don't know what made me look into that, but I just wanted to know where our graduates were going after they leave us. But to get into detail years later, I think it's something, and I like the alumni office, and I'm afraid to say that I like it because Dr. Beasley may email me and say, let's get this started.
I won't email you. I'll just tell you. I'll just tell you now. Let's get that started.
Okay. So because it's important that we continue to be engaged with our alumni, and I say that from an alumni from South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, I'm still engaged with my high school. So it's very important that we do that as well here.
No, I think that's a great idea. And really with the technology, it's a lot easier to do now than it was years ago. So we really should leverage the technology that we have. I see Destin, and I think I'm saying your name right, Destin. Destin saying yes, yes, yes. So Destin, we may have to recruit you since I believe you said you were a teacher. We may have to recruit you to help us with that.
Right, exactly. So we're gonna move, if you don't mind, to the next bullet. And that one we are doing right now as we speak. Leverage technology efficiently and creatively. When we decided to put this in our vision statement, we didn't know that we were going to be virtual full time for a few months. But it's important now, and we see that we need to ensure that our students are leveraging technology, not just for word processing, for typing, but like I said earlier, for coding, for creating music, for creating artwork, for research. So we want to make sure that our students are able to leverage that technology just like we are leveraging now with you all. So, Dr. Beasley?
No, I agree. I mean, we're at a point now, and that's why our board, and we have Ms. Johnson on the phone, and she can share why she voted for the item. We made a recommendation to the board to purchase Chromebooks for all of our 3rd through 12th grade students, and then our K through 2nd grade students will have laptops to use during the school day, and will be issued to them when we have extending learning beyond the school day or virtual learning days. So I just think it's important that our kids understand how to use the technology as a tool. It's a communication tool. It helps them to be creative. It helps them to find employment. It helps them to create businesses. So we want our students to really leverage technology to create, I like to look at it this way, as a high quality of life for themselves. And that, people don't realize you can use an iPad or a Chromebook, create a business online, and tap into a global market and make money. Our kids need to understand that there is no reason that any student with a skill should, even if they're unemployed, they can create employment for themselves. Why? Because all of our kids have talents and skills. They just need to know how to leverage the technology, the tools, and the processes that they need to go through in order to create the structures to promote their skills, create that business, use that technology to be innovative and to be creative. I think we're going to see more of that in our school system. We should see more of that. We expect to see more of that, and we're going to see more of that because of this pandemic. A lot of people, sometimes crises is what they say, the mother of innovation. I think we're going to see more people figure out, all right, I got to do something different now. Why? Because they want to take their destiny and put it in their own hand and not have someone else say when they can work and cannot work, when they can make money, how much money they can make, etc. And we should be instrumental in our school system and leveraging technology to show our kids how to leverage technology in order to create that lifestyle for themselves.
I agree. And I do not see any questions or comments. Well, I do now. I think computer technology should include coding. It can start as early as elementary. Yes, we agree. If any of you participated or saw the board meeting a few months ago, I want to say 2 months, it was one of the virtual meetings. We did discuss with the board a few of our elementary schools that are moving into STEAM as their true theme, if you will, on the north end, and they will be highly engaged with coding. And that is something that we are doing across the district as well. In all of our schools, we're trying to STEMify all of our schools and coding is a big piece, because to me, coding is like another language. So they'll be learning another language, if you will. So we're working on it. We can't do all schools at once because we want to make sure that we do it with fidelity. So we are going to start and see how it works out on the north end of our county with the rigorous training to make sure the training works. And then we'll move into really looking into the other schools. And we do now have a new STEM director who started a few months ago as well. And so she's looking into coding on the elementary level. So we're moving into that direction because I believe all students need to learn how to code. Teaching parents, yes. We need to have some parent classes. I agree, and I'm gonna write that down.
And they will see more parent classes in the new year, even for our early learner.
Exactly.
At the pre-K level, you'll see more parent offerings. We're going to really use the technology to get more parents, like we're doing tonight, to get more parents connected to these learning opportunities. So more to come. And once we push that information out, we need you to share with other parents and tell them to get connected and to participate.
Yes. Okay, so the next item is lead, collaborate, and contribute to a team and community. If we're not learning anything, we're learning now that it is very important that our students become leaders. Our students are able to collaborate in any situation, and we want them to also contribute to not only the team, but the community. And the community is the piece where we talk about community service. That is why our district felt the need to ensure that, at least at the high school level, when our students are earning these different diploma seals, that we have community service as part as the criteria to earn those seals. Community service with your foreign language, community service with your CTAE class, community service with your fine arts seals. So we're ensuring that our students are able to contribute to the community and then the team as well. And we want our students to be leaders and to be able to collaborate. And that comes naturally when we give our students the opportunity to join these clubs, give our students the opportunity to collaborate in cooperative groups inside the classroom and outside the classroom. Because it's important that, like I said earlier, we deal with the whole child. And I'll pause to see if anyone had any questions or comments in the chat box while Dr. Beasley may want to make a comment.
No, I think you've said everything that I would say relative to leading, collaborating. Like I would just say, it just really goes back to all of the opportunities that we're providing students in the classroom and out of the classroom. And that's why the extracurricular activities will be important. Athletic activities, academic activities, all of these activities, the arts, all of that's very important. And we need to get our kids, and I would say to the parents, I know sometimes our kids, sometimes they don't want to, because honestly, but most of our kids will. And if they don't want to, sometimes we got to make them, because we know it develops skills in them that they will need in order to be a successful entrepreneur, in order to be successful in the workplace, in order to be successful at college, etc. So just making sure that our kids have all of these opportunities and take advantage of these opportunities to develop these skills and abilities and capacities that Dr. Wiley is going through.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Beasley. Let's see, can we use school bus Wi-Fi for student connectivity? Monet and I think it was Tarina asked pretty much a similar question. Our technology department is working right now. They're researching the best methods to ensure that our students not only have the Chromebooks, but they are able to connect to the internet as well. So just like Dr. Beasley said, continue to stay connected with the school system, because then you'll be able to see where we are and where we're going with that. I know Dr. Beasley will probably ask our Chief of Technology to do more updates to the board as we get closer so that they are aware. So I would strongly recommend that you attend some of those meetings as well so that you can stay connected.
And Dr. Wiley, we are looking at retrofitting a few buses with Wi-Fi for connectivity. I think that was to help kids who are at home have Wi-Fi, but we are looking at, we got a grant that we're looking at, and it doesn't allow us to do all the school buses, but we are looking at retrofitting some school buses with Wi-Fi.
That's great. That's great to hear. So now, manifest passions into realities. Manifest passions into realities. That means that we're going to ensure that our students are able to display their passions, they're able to show their passions, and they are able to not only display and show or think about their passions, they're able to make sure that they're coming a reality. They're making sure that whatever goals that they set for themselves are becoming a reality, because we want to make sure that whatever our students desire to be, that we're giving them the tools to be successful. So with that, let's see if we have any questions or comments. Go ahead and type them in regarding manifest passions into reality. If there are no questions, then I'm going to go to the last bullet, which is exhibit cultural responsiveness and international competitiveness in order to adapt and keep pace with an ever-evolving world. Again, when we decided to add this particular statement to our vision, we had no idea that we were going to have COVID-19. We had no idea that we were going to have to, like Dr. Beasley did the other day, put out press releases regarding peaceful protesting or equity and equality. We had no idea. But as you can tell, this is extremely important that we show our students and we make sure that our students are able to have some type of cultural responsiveness, and they're competitive. Not just internationally, but also cultural awareness just here in the United States. And as you can tell, we are living in this ever-evolving world. So we have to make sure that our, excuse me, that our students are staying at pace with that. So Dr. Beasley, you have a comment on this one.
Well, you know, I hate to always have a comment, but
Right.
this is just so important to me that we have students who understand not just themselves, but they understand other people, and they respect other people, and they respect differences of opinion and differences in race and differences of culture and differences of background and differences of upbringing, etc. And that our kids are competitive, not just locally, not just within the state of Georgia, but when our kids stand among kids who are from Africa or India or Europe, that they feel like they are competitive and that they've been prepared to compete. And finally, I would say, if nothing else, this pandemic and this civil unrest has shown us that you got to be able to get along, and you got to be able to keep up, and you got to be able to respect one another so that you can live peaceably with one another, whether it be your neighbor in the community, whether it be your neighbors in the state, from one state to the next, whether it be from one nation to the next. This is a global village. And I know many people are thinking, oh, let's just focus on ourselves and forget about the rest of the world. Well, if every nation in the world decided to focus on themselves and forget about the rest of the world, it's just a matter of time before the world no longer has peace, and the world will probably end up in global warfare. And how much peace and how much prosperity and living will we be able to do in a world that's all up in fire? So it's important to teach our students how to appreciate themselves and others, and how they have to work with other people to create a peaceful community, a peaceful state, a peaceful nation, and a peaceful world. If we don't do that, eventually the world will destroy itself. And if that's okay with some people, then hey, that's what you wouldn't want to teach your children these skills, but that's not okay with us here in Clayton County. So we're going to show our children the importance of being responsive culturally, competing internationally, and evolving to be better people, to be a better community, to be a better state, a better nation, and a better world.
And I think Dr. Pulliam had a question, how will you identify these qualities? What would they look like? I'm going to assume that she's asking about this particular slide because that's when I saw it. I have to be honest that cultural responsiveness is the most difficult piece to quantify. But with the international competitiveness, because we are moving into advanced learning for all, we will have AP exams to measure our students with international competitiveness. We have, and I see someone mentioned something about IB, but we also have Cambridge, where we will be able to measure our students internationally, as well as AP and IB. So that's just one way we can measure. Our job now is to take these very broad statements that we're making and see how we're going to quantify them. So we're going to work closely with our research, assessment, evaluation department. I think I messed up the title, but we're going to work closely with them so that they're the experts when it comes to evaluating effectiveness of programs. They're the experts in developing what tools we're going to use to actually measure what we expect. So we're going to rely heavily on them to tell us what we can use to measure the success of any of these statements.
And
so
Dr. Wiley, I'll just add, our counseling department currently uses a tool to assess how our students are doing in many of these skills. We use it for social emotional learning. Yes. I can't think of the name of the tool right now, and it just escapes me. But we're collecting data on our students by racial group, individual data, so we can determine whether or not we see these skills developing in our students from the lower grades to the upper grades. Thank you.
Okay, so I wanted to respond in detail to Dr. Pulliam's question about IB so that other people may not be aware, but Lee Street Elementary is working through the IB certification, if you will. Jonesboro Middle School is also working through that process, and then we're going to transition into Jonesboro High School. We're phasing it in to ensure that we're opening the programs in a manner that it will be able to be sustained with our student enrollment. And then for Cambridge, we have Arnold Elementary and Suter Elementary, and then we also have Elite Scholars that are Cambridge. And of course, all of our schools offer AP. Right now, we have AP Capstone at Forest Park High School and AP Capstone at Morrow High School. So we're working to ensure that all of our high schools, in some shape or form, our middle schools as well, have some type of program where we can measure whether or not they are being internationally competitive.
Dr. Wiley, I'll just add, I think Ms. Edwards shared, it's the Panorama survey that we use. I couldn't think of the name of that, but clearly she knows, and I thank her for sharing it. That is a survey that we use to measure how our kids are developing and reflecting these skills, and over time, if we're actually improving as we implement strategies to improve in many of these skills. But I'm sure that as we have more discussions, we'll figure out some other ways of measuring and some other skills that we want to measure to ensure that we're achieving this vision statement.
Someone had a question. How will go ahead.
Go ahead, Dr. Wiley.
I don't know where you were because my internet is going in and out. But someone did have a question that asked, how will teachers and principals be able to handle disruptive children in the classroom in order for other students to learn effectively? I've been in education long enough to know that the school site will need to make sure that they have the processes and procedures in place, their discipline plan, their PBIS, whatever method that they're using, to ensure that all students can learn, even the disruptive ones. We need to make sure that all students can learn. But I suggest, if that is an issue at your school, you sit down and speak to your principal. Dr. Beasley, am I correct?
You are correct. And because we do have district-wide expectations and strategies, but what I've observed and what Dr. Wiley and others have observed is oftentimes people may have one situation, or their child may have one situation in one particular classroom, and sometimes they generalize and think that that's happening in everybody's classrooms. And we have, most of our teachers are not having those classroom issues every day. Part of being an effective teacher is knowing how to implement strategies to manage that. Part of being an effective school principal is knowing how to organize a school so you minimize disruption. But we still have to deal with challenges. And so I always say, work with the teacher. If you're not successful there, always work with your school principal. Remember, every school has a principal, and that's our expectation of principals, that they provide students the best instructional environment, which means that if there are issues with discipline, they have to be addressed. But we do provide district-wide training and support to ensure that we are moving in a positive direction. And you should know, the data that we have for the last 3 years shows that in all areas of discipline, we have been improving double-digit gains of improvement in all areas over the last 3 years. So we know that our students are behaving well. Are they perfect? No, because we still have discipline issues, but it's not happening. All of our kids are not misbehaving every day in our school system. That is just not the case. But we still have to address misbehavior. Why is that the case? Because kids will be kids, and all kids don't come from your household where you may have taught your children how to behave and even hold them accountable. Some kids come to school, and the first time they see structure and accountability is at school. And therefore, we have to ensure that we continue to train, and that we adhere to our student code of conduct, and that we implement PBIS, positive behavior intervention, and supports, so that we'll continue to reduce the number of discipline problems that we have. And I think most importantly, that we provide high levels of engaging instruction, because most students will pay attention and participate when they love what the teacher is doing in the classroom.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And thank you, Dr. Beasley, for your response. And with that, we are done with the vision statement. So I personally want to thank you for your participation and your input. This was great. I am going to take all of your comments. Ms. Booth, I will email you along with our communications department to talk about the alumni office. And I have all of your comments, and this is recorded, and we're going to post it on our website if you wanted to review anything, so you can hold us accountable. So you can say, remember on, such and such date, you said you were going to do this. So hold us accountable as well. And with that, Dr. Beasley, do you have any closing remarks? And then we can say our goodbyes.
Well, thank you, everybody. It's been a very engaging session. I'm glad that you took out time to participate. Thank you to Ms. Johnson, our board member, and for supporting the work. She's always very supportive of what we're doing as we move the district forward. Thank you to all the participants that came. Thank you for just supporting the work and helping us go in the right direction. We know it's not perfect, but you have our commitment. We're going to move this district forward. We're going to become that high-performing school system. We're in system redesign, and we're not going to let the pandemic deter us. We're just going to continue to be a better and better school system. So thank you, Dr. Wiley, for your leadership. Thank you to everyone, our interpreters, for your support, your service. Thank you, parents, for participating. And so you all get home and try to get some rest, and we'll see you the next time.
Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.